Throughout history, for the Jedi Order, there have been 3 planets of sacred importance. Helum, within the unknown regions, an icy planet with a unique nexus to the Force, and which has been the main source of kyber crystals for the elaboration of lightsabers. Tython, the Force Forge, the planet where it all began, the birthplace of the Jedi and the Jedi Order. And finally, Ossus, the Red Oasis. After the devastation of Tython following the Force Wars, the Jedi Order set out in 25,783 before Battle of Yavin within the Outer Rim territories to the Adega system, a particular location with 2 suns, Adega Prime and Adega Vesh, around which the planet Ossus orbit in a figure 8 trajectory. Ossus is a lush and verdant world with abundant forest, rivers and lakes. The planet's climate is temperate, with mild winters and warm summers. The surface of Ossus is covered in a variety of different biomes. The planet is also home to a number of unique and exotic plant and animal species. One of the most important locations on the planet is the city of Nosa. Constructed of stones and ornamented with bronzium, the city of Nosa was placed high in the western Ielka Mountains, far to the south of the planet's equator. But in addition, this mountain range wasn't only important for the city, but the mountains housed within them a series of cave systems where Adegan crystals were abundant, and just as Helum, these were prized by the Jedi Order for their use in the lightsabers. As the years passed, the Jedi Order advanced and prospered within Ossus. Philosophers and Force scholars sought to delve deeper into the mysteries of the galaxy, and like their ancestors, the Jedi and the Jedi of Tython sought to protect and serve the light side of the Force by eradicating every threat that loomed in the region of the galaxy, with which this ideology will find a very powerful ally, the Republic. With the birth of the Galactic Republic in the year 25,053 before Battle of Yavin, explorers traced hyperspace routes. One of them was the Perlamian trade route that ended at Ossus. Everyone in the Republic was surprised to see the magnificent power of the Jedi and their great bond with the Force. The leader of the Jedi Enclave, Master Hound Tiar, was invited to tour the Republic. And after his return to Ossus, and after various debates in the Order, they realized the common goal between the Order and the Republic, joining forces. The Jedi proclaimed themselves defenders of the nascent Republic. Ossus and the Jedi will be prepared to defend the core worlds. The doctrine and system of the Jedi Order, as well as its ideology, remained intact for thousands of years, rooted in the principles of the Force and selfless service to the light side or Ashla. Furthermore, the Order was aware of the mistakes of the past that led to the extinction of both the Jedi Order and their planet Tython. The cornerstone was always the balance, the war against the Rakata and the inevitable use of the dark side or Vogan in the year 25,793 before Battle of Yavin, along with the first confrontation between the dark side and the light side in the Force Wars around the same year, showed to the Jedi the easy corruption that the dark side can cause, even to the most experienced masters, such as Master Rajavari, one of the 4 founders of the Jedi Order. The Order knew how tentative the dark side could be for those more curious members. However, for the Jedi, the dark side is no more powerful. It burns bright, but quickly burns out. With the great diversity of planets and species throughout the galaxy, the Jedi Order was not the only organization that at one time studied and followed the Force. Countless orders emerged among the various cultures that heeded the call of the Force and adopted their own perception. The Aing-Tii Monks are among the most inscrutable of the galaxy's Force users. They inhabit the distant Cathol Rift, and despite their great affinity with the Force, they believed that their Force talents were gifts from their gods, those who dwell beyond the veil. And generally, they preferred not to use the Force unless it's necessary. The Aing-Tii believed that the Force didn't have a dark side and a light side, but rather had many colors. Aing-Tii Monks possess various Force abilities, including one known as flow walking. This technique allowed advanced practitioners to transcend time by focusing on the current of the Force, releasing their emotions and concentrating on a specific point in time. With this ability, they could observe past or future events if they knew the location where occurred or will occur. However, by allowing their emotions to return, they could influence events with certain limits, and change events, although change was only possible to a certain extent. The Force itself couldn't be substantially altered, and ensured that events continue as they were predestined to do. The Baran dosages of Dorin are the most gifted Force users among the Xendor race. From their beginnings, the Baran played the role of advisors and seers in Xendor society. Initially, they used the Force to enhance their natural senses, anticipating weather events, and saving Xendor lives by foreseeing danger. As they explored the Force, they discovered their ability to glimpse the future. Although they weren't considered a militant order like the Jedi, they could learn certain martial arts, primarily using wooden staffs. Those who trained also possessed advanced Force abilities, excelling in telekinesis and the white lighting technique. The Miraluka were thoughtful, cautious, and little interested in personal gain or glory. Because they lacked eyes, they used diadems, masks, or hats to cover their appearance. They perceived the environment around them through Force vision instead of normal vision. This was so strong that if a Miraluka looked at a Jedi, could see the Force radiating from them. They were a tight-knit community that considered themselves one big family, and were surprised at life not connected to the Force, as they were so accustomed to Force sensitives. They worshipped two gods, Ashla and Vogan, following the philosophy of the greater Force, believing in neither God nor evil, and accepting both life and death. The Matukai were an organization of Force adepts who used the physical body to channel the Force. His philosophy focused on balancing the spiritual part with the physical body, using exercise as meditation. The training involves meditative martial arts, physical exercises, and somatic rituals. They stood out for being able to develop sensitivity to the Force in individuals who were naturally sensitive to it. They preferred to stay clean and strong, avoiding the dark side and using a weapon called Wanshen. This weapon have a single-edged blade at one end. Each Wanshen possessed unique and had patterns etched into the blade to symbolize things important to its creator. They were nomads without a fixed headquarters, never exceeding a large number of members simultaneously. They emphasized spiritual flexibility and relaxed state to improve efficiency in channeling the Force. A common exercise for a Matukai was to remain in a stance for hours or even days, sometimes under adverse weather conditions or other physical stress, hoping to allow the Force to flow through them in the process. Upon completion of his training, Matukai received a distinctive tattoo that covered his forehead and the sides of his face near his eyes. And finally, two important orders that stood out for their future importance with the Order Jedi. The Guardians of the Breath, also known as the Kashimir, an organization of 4 users from the planet Kashi. They call the Force the Breath, and with their sensitivity to it, they could stimulate cell growth in both plants and animals. They even use its powers to heal injured people. A particularity of the Guardians of the Breath is that they keep the lore off in the methods for calling on this energy by oral tradition. It's considered blasphemy to lay down this information in any concrete format. Hundreds of Kashmir within the society apply to be members of this order, and although many members of the culture possess the innate ability to access the breath, very few achieved membership. Those who were accepted even found themselves with a limited ability to understand and control the breath, so they also fell by the wayside. Only a few were able to finish the training to become a member of the Guardians of the Breath and be able to wear the dark gray robe with a hood and a piece of red and gold cloth over the left shoulder that characterizes this order. The Kashmir maintain an isolationist policy, refusing to even speak with off-worlders, although they do have space travel capabilities, including light-speed engines and craft. Those outsiders who believe that the Kashi will accept them and teach them about breath usually find themselves locked in the depths of a dung cell for the rest of their lives for daring to utter such sacred words. This order, in addition to being strict and aggressive with foreigners, was equally so with its members, to the point of some guardians being exiled, sentenced to wander the galaxy wordless until they die. Some of these individuals have turned to evil ways, using the breath for self-gain and the destruction of others, and one of these exiled members was Xendor. In the Outer Rim territories, located in the Feline sector, Xendor was born on the planet Kashi, a force-sensitive human who was exiled after he began to embrace and follow Vogan. Before leaving, he took from his home a talisman engraved with the sigil of his house. There is almost no information about the exile to Xendor, but what is known is that probably, thanks to the Force or some contact with some Jedi, ended up taking refuge with the Jedi Order in their fortress of Ossus. Xendor's personality was tremendously conflicting, a force sensitive with an insatiable curiosity to go beyond established limits, not caring about losing even his home to achieve his desires. A dissident, powerful, and brave man with a very strong sense of individualism. And the second relevant order, the followers of Palawa, a millennial order studying the Force and the midichlorians. Two important characteristics are those that stand out to the followers of Palawa: the development of the Teras Kasi, that was a deadly and mystical martial art, and they also master a deep trance technique which they could use to sleep for decades without aging, somehow tapping into the Force through meditation. Teras Kasi, a deadly martial art, which meant steel hands, this referring to the extreme hardness of a practitioner's fist and the strong piston-like blows they could produce. Arden Lyn was a female human who belonged to the Order of the Followers of Palawa. After having achieved Steel Hand of Palawa, that was a title held by members of the Followers of Palawa, her curious and adventurous personality took him to Pelgrin to learn her fortune thanks to the Oracle. In the Outer Rim is the planet Pelgrin, where the native inhabitants of the planet, through a combination of technology and the Force, built the Oracle almost 2 million years ago, making this mysterious device one of the oldest in the entire galaxy. Arden Lyn arrived on the planet Pelgrin and found the Oracle, an octagonal tower 88 meters high, made of wood and supported by structures of unknown metals. The construction had a complex mechanical network consisting of gears, switches, and pendulums. The Oracle itself was located deep in a chamber within the central axis that extended from the base of the facility to its summit. At the top of the tower was an hexagonal chamber. A spiral staircase went up to the tower. From afar, she could hear the clock mechanism echoing in the air. Arden Lyn felt a great connection to the Force in that place. She was unusually strong and entered the chamber. The Oracle showed her visions of the Force, told her that she must go to Ossus, where she will find a man with a beautiful face and intelligent mind, and she will make him her master. Arden Lyn traveled to Ossus, and the Jedi welcomed her along with other followers of Palawa. On the planet, Arden Lyn met Xendor, the man of her vision. Since his arrival in Ossus, Xendor was respected in the Order, but his insatiable character, which even led him to exile from his own Order of the Guardians of the Breath, made him a conflicted person, and whenever he could, he expressed his disapproval of methods increasingly exclusive of the Order. Xendor asked Arden Lyn to learn about the Palawan martial arts. However, he warned that they should talk under the Jedi's radar. Despite knowing each other for a short time, they developed a unique bond, one that the Oracle of Pelgrin had told Arden Lyn will happen, a relationship so close that they will become friends and lovers. At first, the curiosity was peaceful. Xendor sought permission from the Jedi to create an academy for the study of the traditions of the Force, and thus took advantage of the knowledge of the Charus Academy and the Daivendu, the Palawa and the Kashmir, the Varandos ages of Dorin, the Way of the Dark, used by the sorcerers of the Rand, and the Protectorate of the Hidden. When they said no, as Xendor had anticipated, he left the Order to found his own academy, the Legionnaire Academy in Lettow, for studying alternative for users' traditions. Each of the newcomers understood each other, shared the same ideologies, and had total support for the leaders. More than an academy, it was a brotherhood, and they called themselves the Legions of Lettow. They swore to defend Xendor, Lyn, and each other of them, to defend their right to seek knowledge of the Force without interference of the Jedi and their pronouncements of what was right and what was forbidden. Within the Academy, Xendor and Arden Lyn began to share their ideology towards Vogan. They didn't fear him like the Jedi. According to them, the Jedi had tried to make the Force smaller, to cage it with rules and restrictions, but Xendor and his Legion knew that the Force was greater than any such mortal endeavor, and that it would never derail anyone who was willing to know its mysteries. Xendor and his followers didn't see themselves as enemies of the Jedi. The great complexity of the Force and its infinite study was the main reason why they had a break with the Jedi Order. They were totally against the restrictions that the Jedi had placed on the study of the Force. However, they didn't see the full picture. The Jedi Order had witnessed the corrupting power that the dark side caused, leading to the extinction of even millennial orders. There is a particularity with Xendor and his legions of soldiers. Since his separation with the Jedi Order, many Jedi turned to the Xendor's side, accepting his teachings and celebrating their freedom by giving in to their passions and emotions and touching the power of the dark side. These former Jedi who embraced the dark side were classified as Dark Jedi. They have rejected the teachings and principles of the Jedi Order, often due to disagreements, disillusionment, or a desire for more power. Their departure from the Jedi way leads them down a dark and more self-serving path. The difference between a Dark Jedi and any other users of the dark side is their heritage and experience. In other words, Dark Jedi are individuals initially trained as a Jedi who have abandoned the path of their order to pursue a selfish and malicious goal of their own design. Furthermore, the ultimate goal is not galactic conquest, but wealth and personal importance. The Dark Jedi reveals in cruelty and selfishness. Dark side devotees regard the Force as something supernatural and foster that image in the minds of others to make themselves appear more mysterious and powerful. Historically, Not all dark side users were obsessed with power, but most did use their abilities to manipulate the environment and exploit the weak. Xendor and his followers thought the Jedi would leave them alone, but that was naive. The mere suggestion that there was another way to know the Force, and the mere existence of them, was a threat to the Jedi Order. The Jedi formed their army for battle against the legions of Lettow, and to his dismay, Xendor became their general and Arden Lyn his right hand. The Jedi called the dark side Vogan, but for Xendor and his ideology, that was the side of vitality, of purpose. Life does whatever it takes to survive. It vibrates with the desire to compete, to improve, strive, excel. These desires can lead to hatred and war, it's true, but they also drive love, passion, and creation itself. That's Vogan for Xendor. The crowning joke, Xendor liked to say that Vogan and his followers were the ones who created the Jedi, gave the Order something to define itself against. In the words of Arden Lyn and Xendor, it was Vogan who pushed the Order to become more than a group of useless mystics. The dark side gave them purpose and made them strong. For the followers of Vogan, the message was always the same: go forth, survive, multiply, succeed. The war between the Jedi Order and Xendor and the legions of Lettow began, giving rise to the first great schism. The battle took place on Ossus to keep the core planets away from the collateral damage. In this fierce battle, the Jedi Order emerged victorious, forcing the legions of Lettow to retreat without any option to the core worlds. And so, the war went. War on Chandrila, Rental 4, the Incursant, and Metellus. The Jedi Order chose Audrist of Pina as leader of the forces. A good choice. A dark and bloodthirsty minded man. Pina's legions had an advantage over Lettow's. They will use the Force to fight as a collective, subsuming their individuality into a battle to move and react as a one. Xendor and his army couldn't match them in that. Pina caught up with Xendor and his army on Columbus. There, the Jedi isolated Xendor, and Pina's Jedi Knights advanced as one. Although the most powerful warriors were at Xendor's side, one by one they fell to the Jedi, until finally Pina finished off Xendor and his spirit fled to the darkness. With the general death, Audrista went to Lettow to finish off Arden Lyn and the rest of the Legion of Lettow. Arden Lyn knew there was no hope of victory, only escape, and so they held off the army of Audrista long enough to see refuge beyond the Republic's borders. Many of Lyn's army lost their lives. Arden Lyn fled to the stars beyond Kittel Farth, following secret paths that Xendor had discovered. But Audrista Pina followed her and was cornered in Irkala. Before parting ways, Xendor gave Arden Lyn his Kashmir talisman that he had taken before his exile, the talisman with the symbol of his house. And when the Jedi took the sword from Arden's hand, she harnessed the powers of the talisman, turning it into a lens for the anger and pain she felt for her love for Xendor. Arden Lyn exploded Audrista's sword, sending its fragments through his body. The Jedi was badly hurt, and Arden Lyn laughed out loud when she saw him. But Audrista was a bloodthirsty-minded man. He had learned to use the Morichu technique. It consisted of slowing down the vital functions of any living being by force to a state of suspended animation. In principle, its purpose was curative, but it could also be used to kill. Even when the Jedi was in the last moments of his life, he used the Morichu technique on Arden. She felt her legs wobble, her heart became heavy and tense, her lungs throbbed and struggled. The Jedi Audrista died, and Arden could see that. but she couldn't get rid of the technique the Jedi had done to her. Everything turned gray and then black, and Arden knew no more. And so, the first great schism came to end. The dream that Xendor and Arden shared was ended by the Jedi Order. Both sides felt a threat and decided to act at their best convenience. Xendor's unique vision of the Force had a level of conviction that deeply divided the Jedi, reminding the Order of ghosts of the past. At one point, Xendor confessed to Arden that he traveled to a world where the Force itself was worshipped as a triad of divine beings. The daughter was the light side, the son was the dark side, and the father was perhaps the Force itself. Xendor shared with Arden that he spoke with these beings, and she requested the answers. He laughed and told her, "Even now, you refuse to understand. There are many truths to the Force, as there are hearts within which the Force manifests itself. The existence of the triad has no more bearing of the reality of the Force than the Ashla and the Vogan, or anything I tell you, or anything you tell others. Any philosophy, creed, or religion that opens the heart to the Force proves itself to be true. My allegiance follows the dictates of such a creed. But that is only a demonstration of the application of power, Arden. It says nothing about the rightness of our beliefs or the universality of our faith. The first great schism was a war unlike anything the Jedi had experienced. The enemy against whom they fought to the death were the same ones who could once be called allies, teachers, or friends. Recognizable faces could be seen on the battlefield, training partners with whom they grew up within the Order, teachers who took on the role of father, and friends who became brothers and sisters. But, thanks to this war, each side had to defend their ideals and put aside everything that had incalculable value in the past. The first great schism had 9 main battles. Ossus, where everything began. Chandrila, Rental 4, Cursant, Metellus, Columbus, where Xendor died. Lettow, Irkalla, where trace of Arden Lyn was lost, and Corula. Padawan Danzigorro Potts, who fought to the death against his master Juk Brusin and his lifelong friend, Master Vlandry, along with his apprentice Cuthalux, recorded his final thoughts on a data card, giving a glimpse into the pain of many Jedi while fighting against his former friends, and even with the internal conflict towards the Jedi Order.
I have received the transmission. The news that General Xendor is dead. At last, we have prevailed over the legions of Lettow. I know it may be wrong of me, but I am relieved by his death. For the first time in months, I look forward to tomorrow. I wonder if I might find a spot of sunshine before morning. Better yet, I might find a familiar or friendly face, one that's still breathing. Forgive me, my masters, my thoughts go astray. I don't mean to dishonor your teachings. You know, I was never good with words. I always wished I could make them flow better. My throat is so dry and I am bleeding something awful. Hear my words, fellow Jedi. I, Danzigorro Potts, am the last survivor of the conflict on Columbus. There were nearly 30 Dark Jedi, so we were fairly evenly matched. Tried to trap us in this ravine. They did. The battle was fierce and fast. It's so quiet now, peaceful even. But we can thank the Force for all we We can thank the Force for... So sorry. I want to leave you with some important words. I guess I'm at a loss. I'm dying. I'm just gonna say whatever I want to say. I killed my friend Blender and her apprentice Cthulhu today, right here on the battlefield. Hadn't seen them since they ran off with my old master to join up with Xendor. Not that I want revenge, of course, but, well, all the rebels have to be stopped, right? I loved being a Jedi, loved it. Wouldn't change a thing, but, to be honest, after Blender joined up with the Legions of Lettow, I started thinking about how long she'd been complaining about the Jedi Order being so sterile, about how bored she was by all that endless meditation. Look, I was never tempted by the dark side. Being in the light side was never a dangerous balancing act for me. It really wasn't. Maybe it's because I'm simpler than some, or so Blender says. I mean, that's what she used to say. But I never ducked the battle, and I never betrayed the Jedi, and I never wanted to do bad things. To the Jedi who finds this data card, I'm hoping you remember this about Blender. You see, Blender was my best friend when we were children. She was the one who showed me how to use the Force, even before we knew what the Force was. She was a good girl. She really was. A really good person. Maybe she teased me a few times when she became a Jedi Knight and I was still an apprentice, but I knew she was just joking. The reason I mention this is because I don't think she joined the dark side in the Legions of Lettow because she was evil. I think she just got tired of all the Jedi rules, being told what to do, how to behave, how not to behave all the time. I think it crushed her a bit. As for all the other Jedi who left the Order to join the Legions, I don't know. It seems too easy to blame everything on Xendor and the dark side. Maybe the Jedi were partly to blame too. I'm not good with history, but I know that for more than 5 centuries, the Jedi didn't have much trouble with anyone. Sure, a dark Jedi here and there, I heard tell. But then along came Xendor, telling Jedi they didn't have to obey orders all the time. I know it sounds crazy, but I wonder, maybe the Jedi need an enemy. I think without a common enemy, we'll just wind up fighting each other and ourselves. Does that make sense? It's getting really cold. I only wish